Let's start with talking about resources. My understanding is both of you sort of work with very small teams and manage to do a lot. Tell us about what your teams are structured. Let's start with Stoli.
Okay, sure. We do have a really small brand marketing team at Stoli. So right now I'm currently recruiting. If anyone's interested, we have one headcount in the U.S. responsible for digital, including that, and that includes social. And then we have one headcount in our global team that's moving over to the U.S.
So if you're hiring, so what kinds of people do you sort of look for? I mean, who are these people that do your content for you?
So most of the time, because Stoli is so small, I'm looking for generalists who are really passionate about digital and maybe have some digital experience. But for the most part, I can't segment out responsibility across such a, I know it's a huge responsibility, but at Stoli, because of the way that we're staffed, I need someone who can do more than just digital. And so right now, I'm going to be recruiting next week, actually, for someone who can help me with PR as well as digital, which makes a lot of sense, especially from the standpoint of community management. They need to be, someone who's handling social community needs to be in lockstep with what we're doing from a PR perspective.
Yeah. What does your team look like?
Same thing. We are a very lean organization. So we have, for our digital team, there are literally 3 of us. So there is, we just have a new head of the group that was brought in externally, and then there's myself that manages the Arden side of the business, and then I have a colleague that manages the fragrance side of the business. We do have a global marketing team across Arden and fragrance. It's probably about, I'd say about 25 people or so. But digital responsibility is now, our team is very new. It's about 2-3 months old. So to be honest, we're figuring out a lot of things. But we're 3 of us right now. And then we have agencies, of course, that we use to help us in terms of content development, some community management pieces as well.
Cool. Tell me a little bit about, because you're both big global brands. And we were talking about that in the town hall, and then we talked about it again just on stage. Sort of the consumers are so different across all the different markets. Are there particular platforms that you guys have found work better for certain types of consumers? What have you just found out just doesn't work?
It's been interesting. So for us at Elizabeth Arden, while the U.S. definitely is our biggest market, for beauty, when you take a step back, you look at beauty, the beauty industry honestly is driven quite a bit by trends coming out of the East. So as we think about our content, while the content we develop may work for North America, may even work for Europe, Asia is a whole different beast in terms of the content, how you talk about beauty, the steps that are needed. So what we have found is that we do have to work with our teams to tailor the content and to make sure that it's going to be something that's relevant. And also in terms of the platforms, and I said this earlier, and I know Facebook is Facebook, and but from a global perspective, when you look at different countries, Facebook is really the channel for us that continues to work. And then YouTube, of course, is one that we are also starting to have a lot of focus on. Instagram has some relevance depending on the market, but then in Asia, Weibo and WeChat are really the ones that our markets are using in terms of reaching the consumers there. So it does provide that, you're always having to kind of figure out, and what we have found, and honestly, we've done a lot of test and learns. It's really around testing out different content, testing out different channels, testing out how this content is placed on one channel versus another, and really being able, you kind of figure it out as you go. We have made tons of mistakes along the way, but it's definitely been a learning process for us. So, we have our key focus channels globally that we are focused on, and really making sure that we dedicate our resources there.
Yeah. Do you guys go with any emerging platforms, anything newer that you just have been trying more in recent months?
It's actually really difficult for spirit brands to go with an emerging platform because one of the regulations that we have to adhere to is 71% of the audience has to go through an independent audit that they have to be 21 or over. And so if you look at an emerging platform like Snapchat, which is really alluring to me personally, and I think would be a great place for us to put content, The primary audience of Snapchat, I mean, they trend way younger than 21. So we're a bit handcuffed by that. On top of the independent audit, we're required to age gate consumers. And so if you go into Facebook, even if you are 21 and Facebook knows that because you've entered your birth date, you still have to sort of opt in and go through a Stoli age gate. And that's true of most liquor brands in the US.
Okay. Are any of you trying Periscope, or has that been part of?
You know, it's funny, as you were saying, I mean, we've had similar conversations about that. I'll never forget, you know, one of our senior executives said to me one time, he's like, we absolutely need to be on Snapchat. And I'm like, but our average consumer is someone that's in her 40s. Sorry, she's not really going to Snapchat for her beauty information. But she's not, you know? And so, but one of the things we are having conversations about for us is around, as we're trying to reach that younger consumer, what may be those emerging platforms that may make the most sense for us. I'll be honest, right now, because we're, you know, our digital team's really focused and we're kind of lean, we are really kind of trying to stay focused on the key platforms. But I think, you know, a few months down the line, we may test, I don't know Snapchat per se, but we may test out something with Periscope, especially for Arden. We have our Red spas. So there could be opportunities with us to leverage something with Periscope, doing something in terms of facials or treatments or anything like that with consumers. So that may be something that we test out in the future.
I noticed you didn't mention Pinterest, which is kind of interesting because Pinterest for beauty and fashion is supposedly sort of the mecca, right?
We actually have stepped away from Pinterest. Our U.S. team, our U.S. team was focused on, definitely had a presence there. And I do think, you know, Pinterest is one of those platforms where visually, yes, for most beauty and fashion brands, I do think some brands in the beauty space have kind of struggled there because it's, you know, do you go Pinterest or do you go Instagram? And I think there's been a little bit of challenge in terms of driving that higher level of engagement with consumers on Pinterest versus on Instagram, where especially the beauty community on Instagram and the interest in beauty on Instagram has really grown substantially. When you have to make choices, you know, it's kind of been, our decision's been, you know, let's focus a little bit more on Instagram than Pinterest. Not to say we're keeping our eye on it, not to say that we may, you know, decide to have some increased focus. And also, then again, globally, when we look, the interest in Pinterest is not, it's not there.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah, Pinterest is not a strategic channel for us because we're targeting male millennials. So I think the last statistic I read about Pinterest was somewhere upwards of 80 or 90% female. So it hasn't been a channel that I'm willing to spend money behind because we just won't see a return on that investment. But to the extent that it can be passive or run by our community manager, can tag things and so on and so forth, definitely. I mean, people are going there for drink recipes and pretty pictures of drinks. People really love that content, so why not?
Right.
But we won't spend money on it.
I know, and we were talking about this backstage a little bit, but sort of, I know everyone's kind of made their mistakes when it comes to figuring out sort of social media, is organic better, is paid better, and where to kind of put your content, where to put the money. What have you kind of learned from your failures? What were your failures?
Well, so we use a lot of paid support behind social because we are just not at scale. Our community is just, it's pretty small still compared to how much reach and how much engagement we get when we put paid behind it. So I'm a big believer in it, and it's driven a lot of return for the brand. In terms of one of the things that, it was such a sort of knucklehead move on our part, but we did a fantastic partnership with Complex where we put some paid money behind doing a contest with them. And so for those of you who don't know what Complex Media is, it's a group of, I think, 300 or 400 properties. It's really big and target really well against male millennials. One of their content pillars is sneakers, which is like the handbag for men. You know, these men have these really deep, vast collections of sneakers, and this whole sneaker culture is a really important passion point for our consumers, so Complex made total sense for us. they came to us and said, we're going to hire a really great sneaker artist, designer, to do like a Stoli limited edition shoe. But the way that we structured the media, we were running the media at the same time that we were flighting it the same time that he was actually designing and making the shoe. And it was, in retrospect, such a like bonehead thing, because we didn't actually have a picture of the finished sneaker. So we were, telling people to enter this contest for this really great designer who everyone knew who this designer was, but we didn't have a picture of the product. And that was a really good learning for us. So to flight the media after you have the content.
Where were you kind of talking?
It's a really good idea.
Just maybe. Where were you talking about this? I'm curious about what channels, because you were talking about the millennial mail,
we were talking about it on all of our channels, and Complex is talking about it on all of their channels.
Yeah.
And the sneaker designer that they worked with, as I said, has real resonance with these guys, and they didn't really care what the sneaker looked like. They were getting like a signed copy of this guy's sneakers. But for our audience, within our channels, it just didn't have the same impact or resonance because we haven't developed a strong sneaker culture among, the Stoli community.
Right. Was the sneaker cool?
The sneaker is so hot, actually,
and
I was going to wear them today. But I wanted to, actually. They didn't fit in my bag, but they're hot. Yeah, they look really sharp.
What about you guys?
For us, as we have kind of, as we've looked at social media and really figured out kind of what direction, I think for us it's really been figuring out what's the right content for us. And so we've done everything from, doing polls about beauty. What's your favorite beauty product? And to showing routines in terms of how you create the beautiful smoky eye for day and night. And
seriously, how do you do that?
It's very,
later.
I could tell you that later. There's it's not as hard as every woman thinks. It's very easy to create the perfect smoky eye. But what we have found is honestly simpler is better. Like we did spend a lot of time coming up with these polls in the beginning, and our consumers are like, yeah, we don't really care. It really is for them around, give me quick tips and hints in terms of how I can execute my beauty routine. So really it's around, little quick steps, like boom, 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 this is what you do, and show her the picture of how you do it. Also, which is fascinating to me, our fragrance is one of those things where, fragrance is beautiful, but at the end of the day, it's very personal. There's certain notes that connect to different people, but our fragrance content online, like people just love it. And we're always like, what is it? And we think it's just the environmentalized shots that we do of it that consumers just really resonate with. So we're doing more in terms of some of our fragrance content than we have before in the past. And so for us, it's really, we've really learned that, certain content doesn't work. Also, what we're also doing is leveraging our ambassadors, as we like to call it. So we have a global makeup artist, Rebecca Restrepo. We have our models that are featured in our advertising. They all have social media followings and honestly have amazing personalities. And then we're now looking to take advantage of that more and utilizing their channels and pushing that out and letting them speak a little bit more about themselves behind being just beautiful faces.
And have you put money behind, how much of this is sort of the paid and then the organic?
So for us, really in the beginning, honestly, it was 100% organic because we were just really figuring out what we did. And actually that was good for us because I think that really helped us truly understand at a base level what worked and what didn't without the added layer of paid driving it. So we were able to get some really good learnings. Now in terms of paid, what we're really finding is that content behind, when we put paid support behind product imagery, so in terms of specific products, and then the quick tips really has worked well for us and driven higher levels of awareness, engagement. That's really how we're able to pull in people beyond our current fan base. And that's what's really driven for us is putting that paid support behind that specific type of content. We are gonna do some test and learns in terms of some of our models and some of the content, because they're even posting content, not that we produce, but that they love about our products. So we're actually thinking about how do we put some support behind that potentially moving forward, because I think that could be interesting in terms of seeing how our audience and even beyond relates to that.
Yeah. What about you guys, sort of when it comes to paid versus organic, are you guys mostly doing organic or?
No, we're not mostly doing organic. I would say we have a pretty big, pretty healthy mix.
Okay.
Like Dina was saying, our product shots get. I mean,
I've noticed that
it's
on
really
Instagram.
it's interesting too because on Instagram, month in and month out, the highest performing pieces of content are product shots with no cocktails.
So it's just a bottle of vodka.
It's like, and so the brief to our content agency is like 90% of our Instagram content has to be a bottle shot. Figure out a way to keep it fresh, interesting, and exciting. Yeah. It's not such an easy brief, but luckily we have about 18 products in the Stoli portfolio, so it's not just the same product and it's not the same background every time and so on and so forth. But on other brands I've worked at, it's been the exact same story, that product shots on Instagram tend to work really well. Yeah. On Twitter, it's totally different. We don't really put product shots on Twitter. On Facebook, we have a mix of all of our content.
And how are you sort of looking at, because it sounds like on Instagram you're looking at likes, engagement, just kind of looking at sort of that's driving revenue. I mean, what are the metrics that you're, when it comes to content, that you keep an eye on?
Well, I mean, with paid, you get a lot of data. So we're looking at cost per click as well.
Right.
We have a lot of video content on Stoli. When it's possible and I can get video as added value from our paid media partners, then I generally sign up for that really enthusiastically, because they'll put the video on their social feeds, I'll put it on mine, it'll live in YouTube. So you can use the same content. It's like, how do you maximize one piece of content across all your channels without it getting stale? Right. And so we put a real high priority on how many times we can use it, how much efficiency that we can get out of that spend.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, because that's something, for us, and as we're, about the multiple channels and also different markets. So what we're really working with our local marketing teams as they're, putting up content is around, okay, we've got this, video that's featuring one of our new fragrances that's coming out. As that's going and working with our markets, understanding, okay, in your media plan, when is this going to be shown? Synergizing that on a global basis, which can be difficult, and some people are difficult about it, but we really try to synergize that so that no matter where a consumer is in the world, she's seeing the same Red Door fragrance content in Thailand, she's seeing it in the UK, and she's seeing it in the US, and there's the support behind that then really helps in terms of driving more global rates. So I totally agree with you in terms of kind of that. Strategy.
I know we're mostly I know the title's about social media, but I am curious about non-digital content. Do you guys do a lot when it comes to sort of event content, those kinds of things? Or has it been because I feel like content, and it's interesting that we talk about it because it's just become part of like the digital marketing entirely. Is there anything you guys are doing?
We do a lot with events, and globally, we have there are a lot of other countries that have good Stoli businesses that are doing even more than the US. They just put such a high value on that. So it does help, because obviously for a spirit brand, I want to get my product in people's hands, and why not do it at a party? So it makes total sense.
Yeah, I just feel like both are very tactile products. So.
Yeah, I think for us, where we definitely have more of events happen is that we have, two pieces. A, for Arden, we're sold in department stores. And so, especially in Europe, our department stores have what's called cabines, which is basically like a spa at the department store counter. So consumer comes there, she could get a facial, a little mini massage, etc. So when we do those types of events, and then that content is posted in advance of the event to help promote the event, but also showing images from the actual event, that tends to do very, very well in that country or that region. Additionally for us, and it's what a little bit I've kind of talked about in terms of emerging channels that we're looking at, is we also have our Red Door Spa that's a part of us. And I think as a beauty brand, that puts us in a very unique position that we're able to leverage that spa history, that spa heritage, as well as the actual events and doing things at the spa and broadcasting that to a more of a global audience. Because if you ask the everyday person, typically what they know about Elizabeth Arden is the Red Door spas. And so we're able then to do those types of events events at the spa, and then broadcast that more globally through different channels to drive some more awareness. So it's something we're starting to play with a little bit more.
Yeah. Cool. We have like a minute left for questions. If anyone's got any, a couple of mics back. Oh, right up here. There's a mic right behind you.
Hi. We've talked a lot about failures, and I think it's great to be able to test and fail, and it's really not a fail because we still learn. But for instance, you talked about for Arden the moving away from Pinterest. So how do you make those shifts while that audience is still there without kind of leaving them feel abandoned at the moment?
For us, what we've done is that we haven't shut down the channel or anything like that, but what we have decided to do is, we have deprioritized it. So we have just come up with a schedule, and this is with our US team in terms of how much we will post on Pinterest to keep it feeling like there's still something there. But what we also have done is, continue to drive up our performance on Instagram and our focus there. So you don't completely shut it down, but we've determined to deprioritize it. And through the organization, there were conversations about this, and there was alignment gained that this was a strategic move that we were going to do. And then also there are other markets around the world that were interested in Pinterest, and we had conversations and really dug deep in terms of the data and really truly looking at the relevancy of that channel in our different markets, and just decided this is something based on resources we can't do. And yes, we do run the risk of losing fans from that channel, but if it's just one of the decisions you have to make. So it is a little bit of a risk, but we've just decided, in the world of limited resources and needing to focus and prioritizing, this is something that we have to do.
Do you communicate openly with those fans?
Or is
it
we haven't. We haven't because we didn't want to say, well, we're shutting down the Pinterest channel. We didn't want to proactively do that. We've just, I think by virtue of consumers seeing that we're not posting there as much or pinning there as much, they'll see that it's not that we're not there as much, and we'll shift to hopefully our other channels in order to engage with us. So
great. Well, we've run out of time, but thank you guys. This is great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.